Okay, well, it's 5 after, so we will go ahead and get started. Again, we want this to be a really interactive session, so feel free to type in the chat. You can also use the Q&A box, and people will be monitoring that as well. All right. So the reason we're running this webinar today is there's a common issue we see in a lot of our schools is that computer science classes do not have as high enrollment as they should. So there are a few reasons for that we want to kind of help you combat. So for starters, student interest may not be the best starting out, and there are a few different factors that contribute to that. One of those would be imposter syndrome. So our kids, they may hear the words computer science, developers, all these complex coding languages, and it's intimidating to them. So that's something we want to help them do is kind of build their confidence and break that imposter syndrome and let them know that CS really is for everybody. An issue we see in computer science in general in the industry is that the diversity figures are not the best. So that's a problem we're trying to combat early by getting as many young students exposed to CS as possible so they pursue it in the future in their careers. And then again, some of these students, they just don't know that there's a really wide range of career opportunities available. So you don't necessarily have to be a software developer or a data scientist to work in the field of CS. There are a lot of different roles that use a lot of different skills. And so today we're going to go over some recruitment strategies that should be able to help you fill your class on campus and get those kids really excited. So the first one just involves promotion across campus. So kids are usually pretty visual. So seeing something cool in the hallway or on lockers may inspire them to come by your class and ask about your elective for next year. So the CodeHS store does have some posters available. If you wanted to use those as flyers, then that's something you can do. Another resource would be using your students themselves. So a lot of our kids, they're anchors for the daily announcements. If you want to maybe connect with them and have them talk about computer science class as an open elective, that's an option. Another thing you can do is if you have had a CodeHS class in the past, maybe one of those flyers includes some of your students' projects, just to show kids some of the types of creative things that they would be accomplishing in your course. Additional resources like your school newspaper, email blasts that go out from either you or your principal every week, and your school newsletter. Those are just a few places we can talk about computer science class and promoting it, just so students and parents are aware that it's an option. Another piece of advice we have is to make it personal. So I know my favorite classes in high school, my teachers were really passionate about their subject. And so students can really tell if a teacher loves a subject and really wants to share their knowledge and passion for it. So most teachers have their own CS journey, whether it's they were in the industry and transitioned to the classroom, or if they're just new starting out learning to code with the students. I have a lot of teachers in that scenario, and it makes for a really cool environment because the teachers and students, they're learning coding and computer science subjects together. So never feel intimidated if that is the case for you. And again, if you've had a class in the past, it's always helpful to show previous student work. And if your students are kind of taking their projects as an opportunity to solve issues in the world, so a lot of our students make web pages about different topics like sustainability, social justice, anything that's important to them, you can really use computer science as an avenue to express that. So again, talking about our current and former students, I think those are some of the best people to promote your class for you. So word of mouth testimonials, encourage them to just chat with their friends. A fun idea is maybe having a referral program. So I know if I was finishing up my class this May, I'd say, hey, my enrollment numbers are kind of low for next school year. I'm going to give out extra credit to my current students who can kind of help me get some names on the roster for this fall. So you can be creative for that in a few different ways, but that's just an idea. And again, it's always great when students can share their own experience. Sometimes kids receive information differently if it comes from one of their peers, even though we're saying the same thing, CS is important, they may take that better from a friend or peer. So if you have something like a course selection day or orientation days, feel free to have one of your current or former students come and speak to those students, kind of promoting computer science and letting them know that it's a fun class and will really help them build solid technological skills for the future. And then another way to get students involved is having a mentorship set up. So if you want to set up some partners in pairs and have coding buddies, or even let one of your kids be a teacher for the day to some other students in the building, that's a fun idea to kind of give your kids some ownership in building the computer science program and culture at your school. So there's a fun graphic of some student work posted up around a campus, just a conversation starter for kids as they're walking through the hall to really see what their peers are working on in CS class. Another piece of advice we have is to collaborate with your community. So yes, maybe you're the new computer science teacher on campus and the only one really invested in promoting the class, but you can take advantage of your colleagues and the people you know to help you out. For example, CodeHS has a lot of material that covers interdisciplinary topics. We have many hour of code classes for coding in art, coding in science, coding in math. So maybe if some of those teachers in your building want to collaborate with you and set up an exploration day, then that's a way to pull some of their kids into a computer science elective. And then kids have a lot of influences. So think about who's important to them and who they listen to, whether that's parents, counselors, sponsors for different clubs, or sports coaches. And a few of our schools, they actually work with local educational institutions. So if you have a local community college that is trying to maybe increase their enrollment for first-year students, they can start building that pipeline early by getting CS classes rolling at your campus. And the last one is, I've heard this success story a lot, that teachers have been able to reach out to parents of some of their kids or just get in touch with some local tech organizations and businesses. If there are people in your community who work in the field of computer science, just have them come do a talk for a day to some of your kids and let them know how they use these skills in their job every day. And it'll really benefit them if they get started learning them early. So you don't have to go it alone. Make advantage of your resources and make sure you're collaborating with those around you. Something else you can do is provide some incentives. Students love prizes and awards. So the CodeHS store does have a lot of material available if you want to kind of give out prizes or thank yous for students for signing up for computer science class. You can even do a raffle if you have a group of 30 that signed up and you say that you're giving away 5 prizes. And then something we also do offer is certifications. So with CodeHS, if you have students finish a year-long course in any of our topics, then they can actually test at the end of the school year. And so these are cool because they don't just walk away from class with a grade and a credit. They have a real-world applicable skill that they can put on their resume. So that's great information to include on college applications, scholarship applications, and even if they're going to try to go directly into the workforce, then they can share that they're proficient in a programming language through CodeHS. So we recommend, it can be overwhelming for students who have never heard of computer science, really don't know what to expect. So we have a lot of ways where you can just provide them a quick sneak peek into CodeHS. The first one would be our tutorials page. So this is a neat resource where students can get very, very brief intros into a lot of different topics. So like this first one, it says Hello World. So literally that's a quick 2-minute tutorial that's going to show you how to print Hello World on a web page. And those are neat, again, because they're not intimidating. They're very user-friendly and very quick for the students. If they have fun with their tutorials, then we suggest they move into Hour of Code. So these are a bit more in-depth, but still very short and don't require a lot of time. But after that 1-hour session, they're going to have a tangible result, whether it be their very first web page or their very first JavaScript program. So feel free to check out tutorials or Hour of Code for providing a sneak peek into the world of coding to your students. And there's a list of some of the other Hour of Code options, but there are tons and tons available. So another thing you can do to get students excited about CS is try to get them exposed to some different career opportunities. Again, most students may think, hey, computer science, those are people who just write code all day, every single day. But there are tons of different occupations and careers that are available. So Coding in the Wild is our resource that highlights some of those different opportunities. So again, we've got developers, game designers, people who work with cryptocurrency and NFTs. So there are a lot of different sectors that are available in computer science. And I really challenge you to kind of talk to your kids and see what's appealing and interesting to them, because I guarantee you can find some type of occupation or career that ties whatever their passion is and computer science together. And so we do want to highlight diversity in computer science because it does exist. So we recommend printing out posters around your school and in your class, just so students see themselves in computer science and know that it's possible for them. There are a lot of neat books that are available. So there are ones that are appropriate for different age groups. I know they start as early as, babies and toddlers all the way to middle and high school, but having your students read some of those books about figures in CS could spark their interest. And then CodeHS publishes several case studies about our different schools and partners that we work with. And a couple of really good ones are the Hidden Genius Project. That is a nonprofit that we worked with that's based in California, who mentors young Black men in computer science and technology. And then Smash Academy, that's another organization that works with minority students to get them exposed to computer science and interested in the field. So feel free to check out some of those and have your students read them as well, because it's just another place where they can learn about how diverse computer science is and that everybody's represented in this field. I'll pause real quick to see if we have any questions or comments from the audience about anything we've talked about so far. You're welcome to type in the chat or use the Q&A box. Okay, we will keep going then. So another piece of advice we have is to inspire your students. Really, again, if they just see work, then it's a really cool way for them to say, hey, that's really neat. How can I do something like that? So a really easy way to get started, even if you're a new teacher, is you can use our website, codehs.com/projects. So we post a lot of our spectacular student work here, and you can filter it by the different programming languages. So if you're unsure about whether you want to teach web design, JavaScript, you can click around and see what types of projects the students would be creating. So again, that's a really cool resource because it shows you just what middle school, high school students are capable of creating. And there's some really impressive pieces of work on there. So feel free to inspire students, share that, and let them know that that's something they could achieve as well if they get started with learning how to code. Another piece of advice we have is just to start small. So some campuses have really robust computer science classes with multiple course offerings that are full every semester. But I guarantee you there was one point where those classes were just getting started. So don't be afraid to kind of take a group that may be in your class casually, whether those are your lunchtime visitors or kids who just hang out after school. Put them on a CodeHS tutorial or hour of code and see if it's something that's of interest to them. A lot of our teachers, they have class websites and social media, so feel free to post about CodeHS there and direct students to our site to learn more about it. And then teachers yourself, you're always welcome to enroll in a CodeHS course. So that's interesting because you can kind of see the material from the student perspective and get to know the curriculum. And then we do encourage you to join some professional learning networks. So we do have our own Facebook group for teachers. It's called the CodeHS Educators Facebook group. And then there are several kind of forums and conversational threads on Twitter that you can look into and join. Let's see. All right. So advice on choosing the right course for your students. The CodeHS catalog has a lot of different options. So we offer courses for middle school students, high school, and we're actually expanding into elementary this year. But don't be overwhelmed when you look at this because there are so many different options available. And you can always reach out to our support team. And if you do have a customer success manager, you're welcome to get in touch with them and kind of consult and see what's going to be fitting for your students. Something you can start thinking about is building a pathway. So a lot of our students, they start with very basic intro level courses in middle school and build up all the way to a capstone AP class. And that's really awesome because you'll see how their skills develop in coding over the years, and they can really see how they've grown and mastered different topics. So again, they'll start out really basic with Carol the dog or Tracy the turtle, and you'll be impressed with how much they're able to learn and grasp as they move into upper level courses and specialty topics. Another piece of advice we have is just enabling student choice. So students will show a lot more enthusiasm, I think, in a subject or something they're learning when they are able to kind of pick what's important to them. So I know some teachers, if they're teaching a year-long course, they may say half the class is going to work on the web design curriculum, and then half the class is going to work on the JavaScript curriculum. So that is an option that's available if you want to set up your class that way. And even these hour of code classes are really good. I know a lot of times for the month of May, especially if we finished AP and need something else to work on, teachers will say, okay, I'm going to set up kind of a choice board. So students can rotate and alternate between an hour of code in math, an hour of code in science, an hour of code in beat building and music. So a lot of different ways to touch on the different subjects and topics that are important to them. And another piece of advice is to try to be creative and add in some open-ended projects for your students. I've heard of stories where teachers actually have students create projects themselves. We have a case study about that that's really interesting, that a teacher, she had her students in the sandbox and they kind of came up with a challenge for the class as a whole. So it started with just one pair of students who did like a holiday theme project together. And then the rest of the class said, well, I want to do one too. And they all were able to kind of come up with creative responses fitting that theme. So don't be afraid to kind of make your class very collaborative in nature and kind of ask your students what they want to learn about, what they want to study, and what they want to tackle and try. More information to know is one of our most popular classes would be our AP Computer Science offerings. So just to clarify, there are two options available there. There's AP Computer Science A and then also AP Computer Science Principles. And something to know is that some students may get overwhelmed and say, advanced placement, I've never taken an AP course before, I'm scared and don't want to try it. But to kind of combat that, the College Board has come up with two different options. So this is a really good table that'll help break down which one may be best for your students. So you have Computer Science A, that course is in the Java programming language specifically. And then you have Computer Science Principles. There are a couple of programming language options for that course. So from us specifically, our principles courses cover the Python language and the JavaScript language, but that course is really good because students don't need any coding background or experience, and they're able to get a really broad understanding of computer science topics and concepts, and still able to take information and apply it in different ways. So that is all the information we had today. But following up, there are a few next steps you can take. So you're welcome to apply to be a CodeHS certified educator if you've been able to use our curriculum and are really passionate about helping us to improve it and supporting other teachers as they find it and use it. You can join our CodeHS Educators Facebook group. We have a lot of workshops on the calendar. So our summer PD events actually just were published very recently. So please do sign up for those. And there are ones that are course specific, ones that are for experienced teachers, ones that are for returning teachers. So register for whatever sounds interesting to you. And even if you can't make the live session, you will get the recap and recording. And yes, please do follow us on social media just so you're up to date on what's happening in the world of CodeHS. We're always looking for feedback from teachers and trying to get a grasp on what's happening in classrooms so we can all be of better service.